Hey everybody, it's Cass and Court TV. It's your girl, Miss Public Info, here with the latest and greatest and sometimes hated updates of your most high profile cases going on around the country. Happy Friday, everybody. So glad we made it. We made it. We're here. We're here. We're here. Now, today, we're not going to do the usual Friday roundup. We're just going to revisit some cases that have had some really important updates. We're going to talk about Kelsey Frost. This is the T Hood shooting. And the Kelsey Frost, who is the daughter of Rashida and Kirk Frost from Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. We're also going to talk about the update on the William McNeel case. This is the young man who was assaulted by the police officer, which was shown on cell phone video. And then we're also going to cover the update on there's so much going on, guys, on Sha'Carri Richardson. We're going to talk about Sha'Carri Richardson. We're going to actually show the video, and I'm going to give some commentary on the Sha'Carri Richardson situation. But first, let's get into the T Hood shooting. Now, I explained to you guys earlier this week that what we know from law enforcement at this time, and at that time, it was very little information, and we don't know much more now. But what we knew or learned at the time was that this was a domestic incident that Kelsey Frost, who is Kirk and Rashida Frost's daughter, ended up being injured in this incident. And as a result of the incident, or sometime shortly after the incident, T Hood was fatally wounded. He passed away after going to the hospital. So the update that we have now is really the video and sort of seeing for ourselves how all of this melee happened. Now, this video has been leaked. It's quite possibly came from Kelsey herself, likely because she is very much on the defense because everyone is sort of coming at her about being the person that caused this whole thing in terms of you got your brother to do this, that, and the other. Now, again, the police have not said that her brother, Kai Frost, is the one who was the shooter in the situation, but that is something that everyone is assuming that he is the shooter involved. The police said that this was a domestic dispute and that they are very clear on the fact that of two things. Number one, that this incident only involved the persons who occupied that home. And number two, that this incident was likely a self-defense shooting. Now, in terms of the fact that we don't know who actually lived in that home, right now we know for sure that it was Kelsey and T Hood. His given name, I believe, is Tevin. We know it was those two individuals. It is quite possible that her brother was living with her, and therefore he was the shooter in the situation, defending her because police say that this was a domestic dispute that Kelsey was injured in. And from the video, we see that Tevin, rapper ATL, rising star, rising rapper T Hood, was the aggressor in this situation. Now, Kelsey, in a written Instagram post that we actually showed earlier in the week, she said that he was actually recovering from being shot 3 times, that she was helping him recover. But from this video, it just seems like all heck broke loose on this particular situation. So let's get to this video. Let's talk about what occurred here. Excuse me, because I have several things up, but we're going to look at this video together and actually talk about that here. Now, in the video, you can see, unfortunately, it's not going to get much bigger than this. I'm sorry, guys, if you're having a hard time seeing. But in the video, from what you can see on this in here, this is T Hood. He's walking back and forth. Kelsey's on the bed here. She is clearly on her phone. And what we see is she's on her phone, and all of a sudden, he jumps on her. You see what's going on here. He's jumping on her. He's just wrestling her to the ground. Let's look at this again. It'll take us to Instagram actually, and maybe that's good so we can actually get a larger look at this. So here's one angle here where we see that he's actually, there's some sound, that he's actually wrestling her to the ground here. So that's one angle that we're seeing here on the left. And then here, and that it's still going, he's kind of, it looks like he's kind of has her pinned down there. And then as we look here, and they may have already, let's see if it's already gone. Let's try to go back and replay this again. So you can see here, it says, y'all, my friend was asleep, and this is what he, meaning T Hood, came in the room and did on some random SHIT. Now, if we go back to this here, it was actually playing here. I'm not really sure why it stopped, but if we go back here and actually see, of course, this is T Hood here. He was a rising rap star there in Atlanta. He was 33 years old. He was, at the time of this shooting, was actually recovering from being shot 3 times previous to this incident, excuse me. And trying to see what this footage will come up again so we can look at it, because for whatever reason, the Instagram post I was at wasn't really working. But let's take a look at this here again. This sort of gives us a one angle of him sort of like beating her up, throwing her down to the bed. This gives us another angle here as she's on the bed. He walks across to the bathroom. I assume that's a bathroom or another room, adjacent room. He comes back. He's reading his phone. She's on the phone. Perhaps they were saying something to each other that was combative, or he saw something that angered him. We don't know, but it just seems like he comes out of nowhere and just jumps on her. He hops on her, grabs her up, pushes her down, pins her down on that bed till she's on the floor. Now, if we were to go to the next screen, this is actually a conversation between Kelsey and T Hood's mother. And Kelsey says, this is before, I think this is somewhere, the first half of this may be before the shooting. The second, maybe after, I don't know, but it looks like this is sometime before the shooting. She says, your son putting his hands on me. Can you have someone send a Uber for his belongings? He's not going to be able to come back here anymore. And I would like to Uber the stuff to y'all while he's on the way. So this is before the shooting. His mother simply says, okay, thanks. And she says, no problem. Thanks again for everything. Hey, I'm not fond of anybody breaking my belongings or nothing. He's rude. Pushing me, slamming my doors, trying to pop my tires, ripping my cameras out of the wall. Nobody is helping me when it comes to him being domestic. And we see this is the actual injury. This is on the right, I think we're looking at a busted lip here. On the left, we're looking at the side of her face. And this is presumably coming from him slamming her into the ground off of that bed. He was pinning her down, hitting her. And then, of course, that's the brother here and the inset here. So we don't really know what happened after this melee, but what we do know is that T Hood was shot. And as a result of the shooting, he succumbed to his injuries and was therefore pronounced sometime later on when he got to the hospital. Now, the mother has been adamant about the fact that, she wants, justice, and that the brother did this. I think I saw some footage of her saying something online. We're not going to play that here because that's really secondary to the situation. What's primary to the situation is the actual incident that led to the shooting, which is what we just played here. I will say this, and this is my only commentary on this particular topic. You have to know if your child, daughter, son, whomever, is an abuser, if they are someone who has these sorts of tendencies. And if they are someone that has these sorts of tendencies, you have to teach them, or even if they're an adult, you have to talk with them about their actions, that for every action, there is a reaction. Now, I'm not saying that I condone any sort of violence whatsoever, but I will say this. If you were someone living in the same domicile with a sister, a brother, and their partner was there beating them down, and you had access to weapons of self-defense, and you went in to try and, stop the situation, and that person then became combative with you and, was, getting the best of you or threatening your life or in some way, shape, or form, then you have a right to protect yourself. I believe that any one of us would want to protect our relatives if there were something going on. Now, his mother claims, oh, she called her brother. She said she didn't call the brother. It's very possible that Kai lived there with them and that he was there and he knew what was happening at the time. And ma'am, you knew that your son had these violent tendencies. Now, I'm not saying that he deserved to be shot either time, either the time where he was shot 3 times or this time in this particular incident. He deserved to be stopped from what I can see from this young lady's injuries. But I will say this, if you have a son that is a domestic abuser, and of course, he is recovering from being shot 3 times there in the street, I would say your son has a problem, ma'am. And that is something, unfortunately, that you, his father, your family didn't really take care of when you were raising him, unfortunately. So now here he is at 33 years old, this big age, and now he's put himself in a position to unfortunately be unalived because he's putting his hands on another person's family member. For every action, there is a reaction, and people have the right to defend themselves. They have a right to keep themselves from being unalived also, right? So we have to look at both sides of the coin here. I am sorry that he lost his life, but from what we can see in this video, T. Hood was the aggressor in the situation. So let's move on now to William McNeel. Now, everyone remembers William McNeel. William McNeel was the young man that was driving his vehicle there in Florida. It was somewhat of a rainy day, but at the time of this police stop, it wasn't raining. He didn't have his high beams on. He was stopped by police for a supposed broken tail light. When he was stopped by police, he asked the sheriff's department why he was being stopped. This is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. He asked why he was being stopped. They told him basically that they didn't need to tell him, but they did tell him, you don't have, you have a broken tail light. You don't have your high beams on. It's raining, da, 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 da. He says, I don't have to have them on, essentially. It's not raining here. When they made the command for him to exit the vehicle, he couldn't exit the vehicle. He didn't exit the vehicle immediately. They made the command for him to roll down his window. He couldn't roll down his window because his window was broken and he couldn't do that. So he communicated that to the sheriff's department. There was one officer who came over onto his passenger side to speak with him, who was speaking to him very calmly. And all of this was caught on his own cell phone video that was on the dash of his vehicle at the time. While that police officer is speaking to him calmly, then we have what I would call the renegade police officer, who actually commenced to busting rather his driver's side window to get to him, which he did. And when Mr. McNeil did not exit that vehicle, he began to punch Mr. McNeil in the face. When they did get him out of that vehicle, he received blows to the body, punches in the head, punches in the face, etc., etc. He still continued to ask why he was being, stopped. They didn't answer. At one point, he asks, he tells them like it's not raining or something like that. I don't need to have these lights on. You guys haven't told me anything. And then he's told, well, it doesn't matter. You need to get out of the vehicle. Now, Casting Court TV, Miss Public Info, of course, you all know by now, I spent many years at the district attorney's office as a public information officer. And I told you at the time that we did this particular episode, which has been a few episodes ago, that if you are stopped by the police, it is within your best interest to follow their commands. Only because of the fact they do have the upper hand. They are officers of the law. It doesn't mean that you are not, you don't have a right to know why you're being stopped, and it doesn't mean that you don't have a right to know badge numbers and things of that nature. But before you begin sort of like, demanding, I need to know this, I need to know that, I need to know this, follow the commands. If they ask you to get out of the vehicle, get out of the vehicle. It is in your best interest so you don't end up with these wounds as this kid did receive. Now, once he got out of that vehicle, again, they continued to punch him. Once they made him get out of the vehicle, they began to punch him and all of that. It took months for him to recover. His attorneys, of course, are Ben Crump. One of his attorneys is Ben Crump, and Ben Crump's civil litigating partner, who took the case for him. It is a civil rights case. He said it took them months to recover. He had a tooth sort of breaking through the skin coming out of his lip. And the Jacksonville Police Department was very laissez-faire about the situation. The sheriff is a Black sheriff. There was a Black officer who was on scene and part of this sort of melee, but the officer in question is a non-Black officer. And one of the things that the sheriff's department, the sheriff said at the time, before the investigation could even get underway or was in tow, was the fact that he did not follow commands, and the fact that he did not report this until now, that they didn't know that this was an issue until now. Now, Casting Court TV's number one question was the body cam footage that you all have is often, especially in these cases, where have a combative, a combative suspect, which is what he would be considered. McNeil would be considered a suspect. And when you have a combative suspect, is that they actually review the body cam footage. So regardless if McNeil had an issue with it, why didn't the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department have an issue with what they saw on the body cam footage? That should have been a very heavy red flag for them. They should have been reviewing that proactively because it involves several officers beating up one person. And then after that, he says during this whole press conference that they did, he says, we're going to investigate this. And, the officer has released his body cam footage so we can take a look at it, trying to make it seem like the officer was being compliant when in fact he had no other choice but to release the body cam footage for investigatory purposes. Now, weeks later, they are saying they are not charging that officer for any official misconduct. And I'm going to talk about why they are not going to do that. They gave us some reasons. Let's pull this down here. They gave us some reasons. They said the state attorney's office has reviewed this matter and to determine whether any of Officer D. Bowers's actions constitute a crime. We would conclude they do not. This is the state attorney's investigatory memo that came through. They go on. Officer Bowers conducted a lawful traffic stop and gave McNeil 12 individual lawful commands, which McNeil refused to obey. repeatedly requesting a supervisor and arguing the merits of the traffic stop did not absolve McNeil from following lawful orders. McNeil's refusal to provide this identification, registration, and proof of insurance, followed by his refusal to exit the vehicle, show his hands, and obey the officer's orders, created a dangerous situation for all involved. And that was pretty much their statement. This obviously is the picture of William McNeel from that day that all of this went down. You can see this is sort of the officer here, Bowers, where he's actually already bust the window open with his baton. McNeil's looking directly at his cell phone camera there, sort of, journalizing this entire event. Now this, announcement, obviously, like I said before, comes after the press conference, that Sheriff T.K. Waters announced that the state attorney's office was going to be looking into it. And this is 3 weeks after that. Now, they said, we've determined that nothing unlawful happened in this traffic stop. Now, let's get to Ben Crump and his reply to this. He said, frankly, we expected nothing less, especially after Sheriff Waters announced their conclusions more than 3 weeks before the report was issued. This was a statement from William McNeel's legal counsel, who is Ben Crump, and his law practice. They go on. Since they are unwilling to seek justice, we will have to request that the U.S. Department of Justice investigate this incident and the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. So now there's going to be an even bigger investigation. McNeel at the time talks about how he was scared. This is McNeel there, and he's in the marching band. He is in his band uniform. This is an updated photo of him here. He, and I like to show this photo because I think when we see some of these photos and we just see, him just being in that police car, being, in my opinion, victimized, we dehumanize individuals. But when we see them in other parts of their life, that this guy has a full life, he has a mom, he has a family, he's in the marching band, he's a dutiful citizen, then we humanize and understand that this person is just like you, just like me, and really this could have happened to any number of us. And I also want to say this. I think people on both sides of the coin, whether you are critical of his actions or his non-actions, I should say, in that vehicle, or you are, on his side, I think people need to come to the understanding and the realization that, yes, we have a right to question police officers. We have a right to know, why we're being stopped. That is a very classic question and a very automatic and honest human thinking question to ask a police officer why you're being stopped for something, or why this is happening, all of that. On the flip side, however, we need to make sure that we're obeying orders. Now, you may be saying, now, Miss Public Info, why are you seeming like you're just, saying they have a right to do whatever they want to us? You're kind of just saying, well, follow their orders and this won't happen. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, you need to follow police officers' orders to put yourself in a better situation so that you are protected physically. It may not still keep you from being assaulted in a situation, depending on who the officer is. But if it gets to this point where we're talking about it's being further investigated by either the sheriff's or PD that the officer belongs to, or on a higher scale, like on a federal level, then at least we're not also talking about, well, this person didn't comply with the orders. Now, just because he didn't comply with the orders in terms of the fact that He didn't get out of the vehicle because he wanted to know why he was being stopped, which he had a right to know. He wanted to know a police officer's names. He wanted to know these things before he would comply with the officers because, well, is it lawful for you to be stopping me? Is it lawful for me to actually get out of the vehicle because you haven't told me why you're actually stopping me or why you're actually putting me in custody? I have a right to know. These are the things that Mr. McNeil was asking, and essentially he did have a right to know them, but because he asked those questions instead of complying first, then of course he was met with violence because they saw that as being non-compliant to demands. And with that, now we get into a bigger situation because now this is a civil rights case. Now this is going to be taken all the way up to the top. And I want to go on about the state attorney's memo that they characterized what appeared to be a punch to his face as a one-time open-handed strike, which we saw that it was a punch. So they're just not even being honest about that. The memo also stated that the move had a legitimate tactical purpose to get McNeil out of the vehicle and to show his hands, which McNeil did after the strike. Officer Bauer's second strike occurred during McNeil's arrest and was in response to McNeil's physical resistance to the arrest. Authorities later said that they found marijuana in his pocket, a large sporting knife on the vehicle's floorboards, and drug paraphernalia in the center console. His attorneys, of course, Crump and Daniel, said that the prosecutors never interviewed McNeil about the incident and criticized Bowers for not mentioning the punch to McNeil's face in his police report. So prosecutors actually criticized Bowers for not mentioning that. And let's go on to what Crump and Daniel said. They said, let's be clear. The state attorney's office never interviewed William McNeel. They did, however, try to excuse the fact that Officer Bowers failed to disclose his unlawful distractionary strike. They also tried to decriminalize Officer Bowers punching Mr. McNeel outside the vehicle and completely failed to mention the officers slamming Mr. McNeil's face into the asphalt while he was under control and in custody. And all of what Ben Crump and Harvey Daniels is saying is on the video. We saw that ourselves on the video. I'm not going to play the video again because it's very violent. And I personally I get really triggered by seeing this video in particular. This reminds me too much of everything that went down with Sandra Bland, everything that happened and everything we don't know what happened. The things that went down with Philando Castile, and the list goes on. And Robert Ray. I just can't. I just don't want to play the video. But you can go back to past episodes where I do show the video, so you could look that up if you would like to. But he was the officer, which is standard for police officers once they got into the investigatory phase of this thing. He was put on desk duty. Obviously, since they did not find anything wrong with what happened in the situation, they're not going to charge him. He'll probably go back to, being on the street and everything. But this doesn't stop. Ben Crump and Harvey Daniels have said, listen, this is going all the way up to the top. This is going further. Since you don't want to punish him, we're ready. And that's why they're really there. They anticipated this Jacksonville Sheriff's Department not to do anything. So they already had their documents ready and willing and ready to go as it related to getting ready to file suit, a civil rights suit against the sheriff's office, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. They know what's next. The city attorney knows what's next. And usually in these situations, the city attorney and all these people have to pay. Now, in my years at the district attorney's office, I worked on various officer-involved shooting cases as it related to officers shooting suspects during the line of duty. Each time there is a shoot case, at least in the district where I was, and at least in the state of Colorado, every time there is a shooting incident, that incident is reviewed by the district attorney's office in that office is usually done by a chief, a deputy district attorney, or the district attorney themselves. They will review it. It takes some months to review. They review any body cam footage. They review the police report. They review any reports that are relevant to that case. And then they make a determination as to whether or not there's anything illegal that happened, which is similar to what happened in this situation. But even in those situations, when the officer is been deemed clear that they did not do anything unlawful in the situation, the city usually ends up paying civil damages, even in situations where an assailant was shot and unfortunately unalived by a police officer, and everything that the police officer did seemed to be dutiful and within the bounds of the law. The city usually has to pay that family a wrongful death, or I would call it wrongful death, but it's likely a violation, a civil rights violation, but a wrongful death civil rights violation. In this particular case, fortunately, there was no death, but there was a severe amount of injury. So I think it is very probable that Mr. McNeil will receive settlement from the county, from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department, or the county in which this happened, uh, or just the city themselves. I think that will happen. This will be a civil suit. This will not be criminal. This will be a civil suit. But Ben Crump is saying, yeah, we're going to civilly sue this person, but we're also going to look into and demand an internal investigation of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Department. Now, this is a pain in the butt for the Sheriff's Department because now this sort of unearths everything that they've been doing. I mean, this sort of puts everything on the table up for grabs for them. Do they have other instances where this particular officer specifically has been, in trouble for, what they would call excessive force? Uh, does this division have a history of excessive force? What are their training practices like? This can really, even though they didn't do anything to this officer, an internal affairs investigation, because that's essentially what it would be, can really tear a police division down because it really sort of unearths all the skeletons. This happened here with the sheriff's office here in Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, where we had two elected sheriffs go to prison for actual sheriff's gangs. Yes, a gang within the sheriff department happening on their watch, and unlawfulness with things going on with the juvenile division and things of that nature. So I'm telling you guys, it's really bad news when internal affairs gets on you. And it sounds like Ben Crump and Harvey Daniels are not playing, and they are going to launch this investigation or demand an investigation be launched. So we will stick close to that and see what's going on there. Now, last on deck, let's talk about Sha'Carri Richardson. I am very troubled by this video that I saw. Now, the video came out last week, and I didn't say anything then. I wanted to sort of get all my ducks in a row, and I'm glad I held out, because since the video actually came out, Sha'Carri Richardson came with an apology to Christian Coleman, who is, I guess, still her boyfriend, and the guy that she was seen beating up in that airport there in Tacoma, Seattle, Washington. Let's go to this and let's talk about this situation. Now, Sha'Carri, I'm very troubled. Let me get rid of some of this stuff here, guys. I'm very troubled by the Sha'Carri of it all. And the reason I'm troubled by this is because, she has a history of, violence, and not violence, but just a history of drugs, marijuana. She was in trouble for that. She's always already been, said that she is someone who, had it hard in life, but a lot of people have it hard. And I want to say this before I show this video, because there's going to be a lot of people who may say this to me, that, she had it hard in life. People deserve second chances. People don't all get a fair shake in life. And that is true. But let me say this. At what point does a person have to take accountability for themselves as an adult? All of this, she didn't have her parents. Her mother died, or her mother, was unfortunately died early and she wasn't raised by her, or whatever the circumstances are there. Her mother wasn't there, and her grandmother raised her. All of that, yes, that is a plausible reason when someone is, say, under the age of 21. Sha'Carri is what, nearly a 30-year-old woman now. At what point does she have to start taking accountability, sole accountability for her own actions? And I would say now, because we can't continue as grown folks, 30 and 40 years old and 50 years old, and however long you want to go on that, to blame Mama them, Daddy them, Grandma them, Grandpa them, Uncle them, Auntie them, for their missteps in the way in which they may have mishandled you when you were a kid, which unfortunately shaped who you were in early adolescence and could have done so in a very negative way. But it is up to us as adults, when we get older enough, when we are past the age of 21, we're fully formed, our frontal lobes, meaning our decision-making lobes here, are fully formed, and we are now responsible for the decisions that we make in life, for the things that we do and for the things that we don't do. So while I want Sha'Carri to do well, and I want her to, have opportunities to rectify, I think that she is very responsible for this situation. I thought her apology to Mr. Coleman was troubling, and I'll explain that later. And I thought her behavior here was also troubling. So let's get into this. Okay. Severity or I'm not sure. We're pretty going to just having just a rough relationship. What's going on? Okay, so just so you tell me that he did you lay hands on her? No, it's nothing like that. She didn't lay hands on you? No pushing, no hitting, nothing like that. None of that. Just verbal. We had a severity of like just cheer. If that's all it is, it's none of our business. Okay. So if you guys make it on the plan, maybe you should go up there and ask for different things. Just get some time. All right. So no, you did not. Thank you so much. So I have my special bag. Is there anything else that you need to let me know? Because now that you have these officers involved, is there anything else? Yeah, why don't you come talk to me over here? Is there someone talking? Come talk to me over here. Hi. So we're in a relationship. I will no longer mess with him or what he had going on. He has some stuff in his bag. I just need to get out of my bag. iPad, some clothes. I took it out, put it in my suitcase, brought his bag back. That's pretty much it. But we have a relationship, this, kind of thing going on right now. But yeah, exactly. So I brought his bag back. I took all of my belongings out. I was leaving him alone. You don't have to worry about me. I have a talking to me, girl. Call myself, like I said, I'm on the phone right now. I have all my belongings, but you don't have to worry about me while I'm in the airport with him at all. I just have to get my belongings out. ID on you? Yeah, by chance. Yeah, do you need my ID for what? If I'm possible assault. Assault? Oh, right here.
Listen. Okay. So sorry. I'm just making sure. It's not him that reported it. Oh, okay. The TSA folks reported it. TSA people, because I can definitely have evidence of him assaulting me if possible. Okay. But, yes, I do. My name is SHA'CCARI Richardson. I do have my ID. Okay. Yeah, but I would definitely leave him alone. There's nothing that I want to do with him anymore. Like I said, it was a relationship thing. I need to get myself out of his bag. Is it the same flight or? We are later on in the day because our flight ended up getting delayed. We supposed to be leaving around this time of day, but the flight got canceled, so the flight doesn't leave until 10 p.m. ish. Okay.
So I'm gonna stop there because this kind of goes on. She is basically told that she's going to be arrested. And it's a lot of, more chatter about what her plans were. I'm gonna tell you what's troubling about this for me. Especially now, I'm gonna say this, and some ladies are not gonna like this, but here's the real. And y'all know I keep it real on Cast and Court TV, especially as it relates to the law. If the shoe were on the other foot, this would end a man's career. This would end a man's track career. Let's just say a Christian actually did this to her, pushed her in the airport, was hitting on her. This is exactly what she did to him. And I'm going to show that video in a few. That was the aftermath of the actual assault. Pushing on him, pushing on her in the airport, if he were doing that to her. And then, he was subsequently arrested for it and all of that. This would end his career. This would be career ending. There is a double standard as it relates to domestic partner abuse, and it isn't right. Men can be victims as well. I said this the last time when I actually talked about this case, the Sha'Carri Richardson case, and that, a lot of times men will try to downplay it because they're embarrassed by it, that, they have a partner who is hitting them, especially a female partner is hitting them. And they will downplay it and also they will downplay it because they feel like it's the gentleman thing to do. Ironically, don't let her go to jail for this or whatever. They don't report it. But if it's in public, like this is a public nuance, and you have other security that are there, like they said, a TSA or a gate agent saw this happening, then someone's going to jail. Because number one, we have it on video, so we know it happened, right? Number two, it's a public nuance, and they are required reporters. They have to, turn this in. You can't be in the airport hitting people. This is a public nuance. This is not the same as if you guys get into a tete-a-tete at the house and call the police and nobody wants to fess up to what all that went on. Now, the troubling part about this is that as soon as she's talking to the police, she displays behavior, in my opinion, that a lot of domestic abusers display. Oh no, it's not me. I didn't do anything. Very much trying to manipulate their way out of trouble, which is what I saw in this. Sorry, guys, but it is what it is. And then once she finds out that she is going to be charged with assault, she does exactly what a lot of male abusers do to women when they are abusing, because it's par for course. She turns to Christian Coleman and says, "Oh, so you told them that, oh, so I'm assaulting you now?" Now, this isn't the first time that she's done this to him, because we can tell by the melee and how this situation unfolds. We also can tell this isn't the first time by the way that Christian responds. It's just like the relationship thing, and I don't want nothing, to have. I just want her to chill and da 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 da. This has happened before, okay? And I said this in the last episode when I talked about this situation. Don't underestimate a domestic abuse situation because the abuser is a woman and the abused is a man. Don't underestimate it. There are a lot of men who are, unfortunately, their bodies are in the ground right now in some cemetery because of the continual purported domestic violence uh, that has occurred at the hands of a woman. A lot. There's a lot of there are some that if they could tell you, they would tell you, but they can't because they're gone because of domestic violence situations that escalated. Now it's just hitting now, it's just that now, but it could become a knife. It could become anything. It could become a vehicle. We heard about a case where the woman actually hit her husband with a vehicle. He died. She used her vehicle as a weapon, and now she's in prison for it. These things escalate, just like they would escalate if the victim were a woman and the abuser were a man. It's the same principle. Now, let's get into, I'm going to play, let's see if I can get the other video, excuse me, guys, not vehicle, but video, um, that shows the actual incident. I think they have it here. I'm not sure. Of course, this is her in the actual police vehicle. The officer told her that she was being under arrest. And at that time, she called him a coward. She goes on to say, Christian, are you serious right now? Christian, I am going to jail because of you right now. No, you're going to jail because of your actions. Even if you feel that the situation which actually triggered you to put your hands on him is his fault because it's something he did, something he said, it's your actions, ma'am, that is putting you behind bars right now. And she wasn't charged in this situation because Christian refused to charge, but she was taken to jail and then subsequently let go. Now, I am not finding the initial video of this, but I will put it in the description box if I don't end up finding it in this article here. But there was a video besides this one where it showed her the whole incident. And this may be it here. Let's see. No, that's something else. Okay, so that is, let's see if I can pull this up while we're talking. But the other thing is too with Sha'Carri Richardson is that she obviously has an issue. She has an issue as it relates to um, domestic violence, and she absolutely needs to get counseling. If I were Christian Coleman's mother or anyone in his life, a sister or anything like that, I would be telling him that he needed to get away from Sha'Carri Richardson. I would be telling him that look, guy, it's time to end this relationship. Even if you just want to be like, a friend to her, there's nothing wrong with that. And this is, of course, they're both sprinters, they're both Olympic sprinters. But even if you want to be a friend to her, there's nothing wrong with that. That is fine. But, actually being in a relationship with her is not a good thing. Um, Now, I want to play, I can't find the video I was looking for, but I do want to play the video in which she apologizes to him. And I thought this apology was, oh, this is a separate situation. This was before this situation. She had gotten in trouble previously for getting into it with a flight attendant um because on an airline. So this isn't her first airport incident. But there is a video of her actually apologizing to Christian. She is sort of, okay, well, I'm gonna, get better, and I'm this and I'm that, and I'm very sorry and all of that. I'm gonna stop the share because I can't find what I'm looking for. Unfortunately, I didn't have it ready. I thought the article had it inside of that, the video inside of it, but it didn't. But she's like, I'm sorry. And she seems just very sort of like immature about it. I didn't think that her apology was very sincere. But again, if I am Christian's family or anyone in his life, I would be telling my son, my brother, my cousin, my nephew, to get away from Sha'Carri Richardson. at least for now, until she receives some counseling. She has a problem. She has an aggression problem. This could very much stem from her upbringing or non-upbringing, but she has an aggression problem. Like I said, she's had an issue with a flight attendant on American Airlines and was booted from that flight. She's lashing out at her boyfriend. She's had several instances, where a few instances rather, where she's just has a problem um, regulating her emotions. And quite frankly, there's no excuse for that. You're an adult and you have to begin acting as such. So I'm very aware that she apologized to Christian publicly. She said she was apologizing as loudly publicly as she did with the whole action, you know, there in the Tacoma Seattle airport. But that Tacoma Seattle airport and that subsequent arrest video is very troubling. It's not just a situation where we're looking at a young lady who is upset about, whatever made her triggered her to get into this melee with her man, or just, a disagreement that they're having. We are actually looking at a young lady that hit this man, is, sort of like, abusing him, pushing him, whatever. And then afterwards, very manipulatively, when she's caught and is told that you're going to go to jail, says, gaslights him right there and says, this is your fault. You're a coward, she calls him even at one point. That is typical, classic abusive behavior, and it's only going to escalate from this point. So it's sad to see Sha'Carri like this, but I think we're going to see even more from her in the future, that's similar to this. And I really hope that she can get herself together so that she's able to have a bright future. But in order to do that, she's going to need to get some counseling. I think it was a mistake not charging her. I think he should have went ahead and charged her. I think because the court is going to mandate that she receive, court ordered domestic violence classes. She needs aggression classes. She needs anger management. She absolutely does. And if I were a male in a relationship with her and she wanted to continue the relationship, I'd say, well, this relationship cannot continue unless you get anger management classes, you get some therapy and counseling. That's if I wanted to be in a relationship with her. Apparently he does, but that would be the caveat for me. It's just sad to see. Okay, guys, that's going to be it for Cast and Court TV for this week. Rounds out the week. Thanks so much for joining me. Thanks so much for being with me here on this Friday. I do hope that you guys enjoy your weekend. Take it easy, take it slow, and please stay out of trouble. We'll be back next week with brand new cases, brand new updates, and brand new lunacy. I'm quite sure of that. All right, guys, take care, and we'll see you next time. This has Miss Public Info here with Cast and Court TV. Peace.